name is Louise Vogue. I'm the foreign editor of Newsweek, and I'm here with Michelle Goldberg and Rob Cox, who've both written for Newsweek this week. And I'll start with you, Michelle. You had an interesting story about Melinda Gates and her latest initiative. Tell us about what the story details.
It's significant for a couple of reasons. Obviously, the Gates Foundation is the biggest philanthropic organization in the world. So when they decide to take something on, it has a huge impact. And in this case, they're taking on global family planning, which has been, because it's such a subject of controversy in the U.S., has been seriously underfunded for at least the last decade. After, in the mid-century, it was a huge priority of the U.S. government. It no longer is. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to be pouring money into a number of different areas. To me, it's interesting because Melinda Gates came to it really reluctantly. She's a very serious Catholic. She also is very wary of controversy and publicity. And it was only kind of after being out in the field and talking to women and seeing what a catastrophe the lack of access to contraception around the world is causing that she decided to take this on. And it's going to have a big impact abroad, but it'll also, I think, have an important impact here, because one of the things that they're doing, it's a foundation that really believes in the power of science and technology. And so they're putting money into the really underfunded field of contraceptive research. They're searching for a birth control pill that works without hormones, which would kind of take care of a lot of the terrible side effects. They're searching for an implant that a woman could turn on and off at will, so she wouldn't have to get it removed and reinstalled. So, I think it's a really important story for global health.
Rob, you had a completely different story, but also in this week's Newsweek.
It's not quite as, it's a little more prosaic, but it's
Shareholders United. What is the story here?
Well, this week you've got two big shareholder meetings. There's just an annual meeting where you vote on the directors, the CEO, all that kind of stuff. But there's a bunch of proposals on a couple of big companies' proxies that are kind of interesting. They're both by a Boston-based asset management firm called Trillium, which is basically asking them to shareholders to vote on a proposal that would restrict the amount of money, to simplify it, that the companies can use from the Treasury's funds in political campaigns.
So, in other words, this is going back to
Citizens United, right, which was 2 years ago, was this decision in the Supreme Court, which has effectively ruled that corporations are people in one respect and that they have First Amendment rights. That's opened up a floodgate of money that's gone into the political process, which has created all sorts of problems. I mean, Justice Stevens, in his dissent, had said it would create basically a lack of faith in the political system because people think their votes can be bought or sold. I tend to agree with that, and so the premise of the piece was that shareholders of 3M, which is the big, they make Post-it notes and Scotch tape. That's tomorrow in St. Paul. Their shareholders are meeting. And then on Wednesday, it's Bank of America in Charlotte, which is, of course, the notorious bank that can't do anything right. And so effectively chosen by Trillium as a target. But basically, you have the same vote going to shareholders, which would be quite interesting.
Final subject of today is new government in France. We have a new president, Francois Hollande. Thoughts, Michelle? How do you think Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande are going to get along? Do you think, what does this
Well, I hope
for
not.
Europe?
As somebody who's, as kind of a pretty unrepentant leftist, I'm delighted. an austerity...
First socialist president in 17 years.
Right, and austerity has been, it seems like a disaster even on its own terms, right? It doesn't even work as kind of tough medicine. It's not good. It seems like it's been, wherever it's tried, it's not even good at kind of getting budgets under control because of how bad it's been for the economy. So just in as much as you have a statement that we're going to kind of have policies that actually take human suffering as seriously as kind of bankers' concerns, strikes me as, I don't see how this is anything but hugely positive.
But potentially very divisive in Europe. Rob Cox, what's your reading here on the new president of France?
Well, it's clearly a referendum on austerity. The same thing happened in Greece, where the two basically ruling parties, PASOK and New Democracy, got less than a third, basically. So people don't like austerity, but that's not entirely surprising. Of course, if you take something away, people are not going to.
But austerity isn't working, right? It seems like even in England, people who initially supported it are coming around to the realization that it's not working even to kind of get budgets in check and
in fact,
right, like Keynesian economics have not been disproven.
The argument that Hollande has made is that you can't have just austerity, you also have to have some sort of plan for growth. So what I would imagine is, with him and Angela Merkel and other folks around the Eurozone will say, okay, we need to have something that even if we are going to embark on this path of austerity in terms of cutting budgets and doing the things that the markets tell us they won't freak out if we don't do, we are going to have something where we say, there's certain pro-growth policies that we're going to adopt. And it is true that if you had growth, a lot of these problems would go away. But he's going to have to address things like France's, competitiveness or lack thereof, something the Greeks, we sort of have in spades. I mean, there are limits to what you can do.
But politics might be much less interesting in France.
I think that's right.
Michelle, final word.
Vive la France.
Rob?
I guess balance.
Maybe not hope, but change.